Welcome to the Inspired Business Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Inspire Wealth, bringing you interviews with top business professionals, empowering you to understand our current business climate and the successes and struggles other business professionals have overcome. Here's your host, Nick Bour.
Hello and welcome to the Inspired Business Leaders Podcast. Today we have Gil Bromley with USI. Gil, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Nick. Happy to be here.
So, Gil, obviously you have a unique background. You've been in the financial services industry for quite a few years. Why don't you start by telling us a little bit about your background?
Sure. So, I'm originally from Philadelphia and moved out to Michigan about a decade ago, and I was on the product side in the financial industry. So representing things like mutual funds, long-term care, and then how we met, Principal Financial Group on the 401k side, as well as defined benefit, ESOP, and non-qualified plans. That was how we met, right? And that's how we established a relationship, since you play in that space as well.
Yeah, it's always interesting to me because, obviously, with your new role or your newer role with USI, a little bit of a difference from what your background is, but I do think it still flows very nicely in with the employee benefits, the retirement benefits, the executive benefit space, which is primarily how I've known you over the years.
Right. When you're talking about recruiting and retaining the employees, you're basically speaking the same language, whether it's, a retirement plan or a non-qualified plan, as well as the benefits, right? Most people expect a great benefits package from their employer. So, while it's new, it's the same blocking and tackling as well.
I would agree with you on that. I also think your background I think you have a unique perspective over what just traditional employee benefits representatives have, because you have the retirement plan background, because you have some of the other product side background. I think you can give a different perspective, and I think you'll do quite well with it.
Yeah, I think most of the employers, you want to make sure your benefits program, whether it's a 401k plan or your employee benefits, you want to make sure that they're talking to each other, if you will. If your employees don't know that these exist and they don't know the great outlay that you're making, the great programs that you have for your employees, then really it doesn't exist. So, my aim on the 401k side and on the employee benefits side is to make communication easy for the employer, to make sure the employers appreciate, what their employer is doing for them. And then also make sure that we control costs on the employer side and without disrupting what's going on the employee side. I think that's the big challenge today, because we see some things on horizons that might be challenging for businesses.
Yeah, wow, you hit the nail on the head there, Gil. I think that communication is key. I think making sure that the employees know what's there and what's offered. That's a lot of times what I've seen from my side of the house is I've seen a lot of business owners over the years where when you talk to some of the employees, they don't even fully understand what the business owner or the employer is offering and how valuable it is.
Yeah, and look, we've obviously come through the pandemic. You have a lot of people possibly working remotely, so you don't have that time for an enrollment meeting, whether it's your retirement plan or the time to walk down to the office and knock on the HR person's door and say, hey, I'm going through this book. I want to know what's offered. So a lot of it depends on technology. And, unfortunately, a lot of employers might be working with a broker who just doesn't have great communication strategies or doesn't know what works, and depending on what kind of your organization that you're working with. So that's where I think USI really is a cut above.
Okay, so let's take a minute and let's talk about that. Tell me a little bit about USI. Why USI? I mean, obviously you have a long enough background and track record and a history that I know you well enough to know you did your due diligence before you chose USI. So tell me what about USI was attractive to you and some of the things that you believe sets you apart and allows you to have some different perspective and experiences for the employer and the employees going forward.
Yeah, so you're right. I went down the road with a couple different companies to make sure I chose right. And, what really attracted me about USI is really kind of our national capabilities partnered with our local expertise, right? In just the Midwest region, right, we have over 740 professionals with an average tenure of about 20 years across a broad range of industries, right? So we can work with a manufacturer. We can work with a white-collar organization. We have dedicated analytics, underwriting, wellness, and compliance experts who make up our region's technical resources team. And, just across the Midwest alone, we're over in 15 cities across Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri, Michigan, and Ohio.
Wow.
I think that's important, right? Because if you're ABC Manufacturing, for instance, right, you want some knowledge that your broker is bringing to you that specifically talks about what's going on in the manufacturing world, but not what's going on in Michigan, what's going across the Midwest, what's going on across the country. Do we see trends where other manufacturing companies are struggling with the same things that you're struggling with and how they structured their benefits program?
Yeah,
I think it's important to have perspective because probably the biggest difference is a lot of local brokers, what they do is they're going to cost shift. The employer says, hey, we're dealing with a retention problem, and we have another R word lurking out there, the recession. Our mandate is to save money, but we have to keep our people. Well, if you're just going to cost shift and you're going to call Blue Cross and Blue Shield, you're going to call Priority Health, you're going to call a couple other insurance providers, and you say, well, I came back with an idea how you save money. Here's a high deductible health plan for your employees. That's fine for you. You save money on the bottom line as the employer. Unfortunately, the people you're trying to retain suddenly go to get a prescription that was $20 and now it's $50.
Yep.
And now they're unhappy, right? So we're kind of working against each other. So with USI, we look at industries, we looked at what we've actually done in practice for other employers, and we say, we have this solution, which can be very disruptive to your organization, or we have this solution, which can be low disruption, but still save you money. And, Nick, you've talked to business owners throughout your career, and in the best sense of the word, I think most business owners are very maternalistic or paternalistic. They care about their people. They want people to come working for them. They want to pay them a fair wage. And they want to provide them benefits for themselves and sometimes their families. I think that's really important for most business owners to achieve that. But at the same time, they are running a business, right? So they have the dual mandate of taking care of their people, but also saving money and making sure that they're just on top of what's going on in the marketplace, how they can make it more efficient, and ultimately how they can bring on more people to expand their business.
Yeah, I think that's so important what you just said there, Gil. How do they make the business decisions while still doing the right things and retaining the employees they have? And I think, like you mentioned, I've been doing, on the financial planning side of my practice with Inspire Wealth, I've done this for years, working with business owners and making sure that they're looking at all avenues, like things like benefits, and it's always just cost. And I think with some of the things that are kind of worrying about coming down the road, we just got through the pandemic, and now we're talking about the possibility of a recession. They're still struggling at times I know a lot of employers that are struggling to attract the right new employees, let alone retain what they have. So I think there's definitely a balancing act, and it's good to hear that you guys take that regional research or even the national research more than just the local, because I think that is a big piece of, as you said, okay, what's manufacturing doing across the Midwest, or what is, what's consumer services doing across this area in the country. I think that's a really important piece that not all brokers and not all employee benefits firms are able to do.
You're right. And, step one is finding the right broker, and step two is utilizing the tools. I'll use an example. Our communication experts, Lindsay Rink, she's out of Chicago, but she works with hundreds of clients across the country, right? So you have a white-collar organization where you have people working at home and remotely across the country. She's seen it. You have a service sector job or a manufacturing job where you have people at the plant. What is the most effective way to communicate to these people, especially since maybe they all don't have computers and workstations, right? So It really has to change and be customized. And, unfortunately for the small local broker, it's tough, right? Do you want to do 5 enrollment meetings that maybe people can't show up to? That's tough, right? Because you're going to get this great benefit program, but you have to make sure people know about it, right? I don't think most people know what goes into their paycheck. They just see what they get after taxes. They don't see what it costs, an average of $12,000 to $13,000 to insure a worker, right? Give them a great benefits package. So I think, it's a little misaligned between the employer and the employees. But we try to bridge the gap and really communicate that, hey, this is the great benefits package that you've been given. If we're going to make changes, this is how it's going to change. And then what the end user is going to see. I think that's important. Personally, I mentioned it before. I coach football at Cranbrook, right?
Okay.
So when I work with an organization, I really am a coach, right? So sometimes you have different players. Sometimes you have a player who is really talented, and it's easy to coach. And then sometimes you have the people where you have to pull them along, right?
Yeah.
So through that kind of consultative sales process, we want to sit down and say, look, okay, what kind of player do you want to be, right? Do you want to be a wide receiver? Do you want to be a quarterback? Do you want to be a running back? It's fine, but let's find the program, how to actually come up with a plan to how you achieve that, right? So, again, a sports analogy, I use a lot of them, but really I just think of myself as a coach for businesses to say, you're providing something great here, you're doing a great job. How do we make it most effective, and how do we have everyone appreciate it?
Well, and again, I think that's the key. How do you communicate it? How do you make sure that everyone understands it and can maximize or optimize the benefit package that the employer is putting together? And I think with as you said, the national size firm that USI is with the local support, I think that's huge, because I do think most of the smaller brokers don't have access to things like that. And some of the other things I've seen over my career as well is you get the owner or the HR person, oh, well, I have a friend or I have a family member, and they're just not going to change unless someone gives them a very good reason to change, because it's family or friend that's the broker that's doing all this. So to have someone like USI and yourself come in and actually show the HR director and show the business owner, listen, this is the difference. These are the things we can bring to the table. And if your employees don't know how to optimize this, whether it's retirement package, whether it's just your health, your dental, your vision, whatever it is, I think most employees have no clue how to optimize their benefit package. They simply see, as you said, what's coming out of their paycheck, what kind of coverage they have. So if they do go get a prescription, and it used to be 20 because it was a better coverage plan, now it's a higher deductible because the owner and the HR director thought, well, it's just cost, let's just save cost. Well, if they're not consulting or they don't have a consultant like USI, how can they really kind of take that step back and know that they're truly doing what's best for them and the employees to be able to retain?
Exactly. Look, relationships are obviously paramount to everything, but here's what's happening to the average small business. Their renewals every year are going up an average of 10 to 15%. Meanwhile, EBITDA has not gone up. Sales hasn't gone up 10 to 15%, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to expand your business, but your CFO or your accountant is saying, hey, if we're going to bring on 3 people, that's $36,000 out the door before they walk in the door, not to mention before we negotiate salary,
right?
Which obviously is the biggest thing on people's minds when they switch jobs. I'd say, the local brokers do a really good job in terms of relationship and everything like that. They're not fleecing anyone. They just don't know any better.
Right.
Literally, they are middle people where they're going to go to Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and Blue Cross and Blue Shield is going to say your renewal this year is 17%. Well, I got to tell you, United Healthcare looks really good if you don't come down on that. Every broker does that. That's where they stop. We say, hey, I'm going to go. I want to see the last 2 years of claims. I'm going to give it to my underwriter, Ross Macbeth, and he used to work for the Blues, and he's going to go through the data and say, this renewal shouldn't be more than 6%. How did he come to that number? Well, he used to work for them, and he knows how they make their money, right? Very large businesses do not pay a lot for their health insurance because they have a team of people like me who work for the actual company, right? Amazon just went out there and decided we're going to do it ourselves. They can afford it. But the business owner with about 10,000 employees down to, call it 25 is paying retail. It's paying heavily, and that's where a lot of insurance companies make a ton of money because their brokers are just middle people. They're middlemen and they're middle women, and they go to Blue Cross and Blue Shield, they go to United Healthcare, they go to Priority, wherever, and they say, what are you offering? And then they're bringing it to the employer. We're going to say, let's take a look at your actual claim data. And here's an analogy I like to make. If you're going retail, you're paying a cable bill, right? Cable bill's the same every month.
Yep.
We're going to make sure you're paying an electric bill, right? If you're really beautiful and you're taking advantage of wellness programs and everything, you're going to get charged on usage, right? So if you shut off every light before you leave the house, it's going to be lower. We can do that. Frankly, the employee benefits market is just very inefficient with a local broker involved, and especially as you get into a 200, 300, 400 person company.
And that makes a heck of a lot of sense to me, because I do know that a lot of the local brokers and local agencies that I've either come across or worked with on some level over the years, kind of focus on that 25 to 500, marketplace. And as you said, yes, their clients are paying retail. It's all the relationship, which a lot of businesses do appreciate. And at the same token, they don't always know what they don't know. So they're not really seeing what else is out there. They don't really know that you can do things like what you guys are doing, where the underwriter will actually look at the data and look at what your claims history was, especially for a bigger company that's got 200, 300, 400, 500 employees. And the difference that can make when you go back to a Blue Cross or you go back to a Priority or United Healthcare and say, look, I don't know why we're getting this big of a rate increase. Help me understand this. And you actually have some legs to stand on. It's not just the insurance company saying, well, it is what it is, and you don't have a choice.
Right. And look, you have to come with evidence. Blue Cross Blue Shield United Healthcare, they're $1 billion companies.
Yep.
Here's the sad truth. They don't need your business. If you walk, Mr. Local Broker, you don't have a big enough business, you're not going to affect our share price, right?
Right.
So, woo, dare me. Oh, you're going to leave? Oh, no, we'll get you back. You need actual evidence to do this, and there's carve-outs that you can make that the insurance companies say they'll want you to, but you have to bring evidence to the table, and you have to show the employer why it makes sense to do this. So, in summation, we have a lot of tools that I think put us head and shoulders above, above local brokers. But also, we are local, right?
Yep.
My office is in Troy, Michigan. I live in Michigan. I live in Royal Oak. I've been here 10 years. My two brothers, my niece and nephew are here. I live in Michigan the rest of my life. However, we're one of the bigger companies you never heard of. We're not subject to the whims of Wall Street. We're privately owned, so you can't buy USI stock. Sorry, even though it sounds like a great stock to buy. We're privately owned, and that just allows us to really put the profits back into better technology, better decision making, and really just acquiring more clients, and just that refines, that sharpens the knife, that sharpens our tools.
I think that makes a heck of a lot of sense from what I know on this space and what you're able to bring to the table over and above just the traditional brokers that I've come across over the years. One thing I do want to do, I want to switch gears for a minute before we wrap up. I just kind of want to talk about, because of what your background is and what you have the knowledge on, when you're going out and you're meeting with a company that's, let's just call it that 50 employees to a few hundred employees, and you're looking at reviewing their benefit package and what USI can do in addition to your background, does that kind of go into like talking to the owner or the HR director and saying, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, whatever their name is, hey, Joe, hey, Jane, can you, I want to give you some perspective on this. If you're really looking at just dollars and cents, let me give you some solutions in conjunction with maybe a few other things outside of USI's wheelhouse. But because of your background, you can give some additional thoughts and strategies for additional retraction and retention. So I'll give you an example of, okay, so if you're reviewing their benefit package and maybe you're adding or subtracting an employee benefit, a health insurance plan, where maybe you're adding a higher deductible plan, but you're still having the option to maybe keep what they have, but you're incentivizing them to go to the high deductible plan for cost purposes. What have you been seeing out there when you're talking to business owners and HR people about, hey, have you thought about an executive benefit plan, or have you thought about things like additional carve-out strategies that you can offer to the key employees to make sure they don't go anywhere, even by making changes to cut some costs in the healthcare? I'm just curious, just because I know your background a lot and I know
Sure.
how your knowledge is. I just want to get your insight on that.
Yeah, look, so I'm there in the purest sense of the word to, figure out what you're trying to accomplish, right? And let's be frank, right? If your CFO leaves, that might be way more devastating in your organization than possibly a salesperson leaves or, a frontline worker in a manufacturing firm.
For sure.
So it's kind of the dual concerns, right? We want to take care of everyone in plans where we can't discriminate in, right? So discrimination being a different definition, right? We have to offer something to all employees. But the non-qualified or the discriminatory plans can really give you that golden handcuff situation where your CFO might get offered a 50% raise to go to a bigger company. However, you have a vesting schedule on this non-qualified plan. They're going to leave possibly $100,000, $200,000 on the table. So I'll give you an example. I was just working with a 300-person manufacturing firm where we saved them first year some tweaks to their benefits package, about $130,000 first year savings. It was just a very inefficient plan and just some outliers in terms of the claim numbers.
Wow.
But, talking to the owner, talking to the HR person, they've had trouble keeping a CFO in place. They had turnover, probably 3 CFOs in the last 10 years.
Wow.
They had a new one, and they kind of asked, like, well, I hope they really like this health insurance plan because we got to keep them. And it was just kind of a perfect layup to say, have you ever heard of a non-qualified plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So always looking for opportunities in that space because, I have some great partners, right? You being one that actually understands that space and I can bring right in, and it's one size fits all. Look, there's no financial arrangement between us. Really what it is if I can help my client, grow, retain, recruit, all that good stuff, that just makes me look better, right? So I always think, how can I help, right? Yeah. How can I help? I joke around. I knew a very good financial advisor a couple years back, and he got a call one time from one of his oldest clients, and he said, "Ooh, we were in the middle of a meeting." He said, "Hey, I have to take this." And she called him, and he said, "Well, let me check, dear." And he looked up a podiatrist that was local. And I said, "Why did you look up a podiatrist?" And he said, "She was asking for a podiatrist. That's how I know my client is a great client. She calls me for everything, even though I'm her financial advisor." So that's the way I want my clients to work with me. Hey, we're looking for a real estate person. Oh, I know one. We need someone to institute this non-qualified plan. Yes, I know one. You need a great car mechanic. I know one, right? I just like connecting people with competent professionals that can do a great job for the people I trust. Because as you know, Nick, making a referral, it's important to make sure that if you refer somebody in, they have a soft landing and they're getting good work done. I joke around. I have family members that I love, but I wouldn't hire them to mow my lawns. But there's solid professionals out there that I've got to know over the years that I want to bring in and really help a business grow.
It's definitely a breath of fresh air, Gil, because being in the business space as long as you, it's not as easy as you think finding competent business professionals that you trust, that you feel confident and comfortable enough to bring in with your clients. I mean, this about me. The whole reason why I'm doing things like this and I have a team approach is because I want to have experts in the right seats for my clients, especially the seats that I admit that's not my expertise. It's never going to be. I want relationships with people like you that I know will take care of my clients. I know that my clients are in good hands. So, I think that unfortunately, not everyone agrees with that and not everyone feels that way in the industry. There's a lot of people out there that just want to keep that control of that client in every single aspect. And sometimes that's not the best thing for the client.
No, it's a round peg in a square hole. You need someone that just specializes in that, right? For instance, my Aunt Kathy, I love her. She lives here in Michigan. She basically walks dogs. She's retired, and she has a little dog walking business. I'm insurance licensed. I worked in the financial industry. Years ago, my first job out of college, I worked in nursing homes on the financial side, dealing with Medicaid. And she had to pick a Medicare Part B plan.
Okay.
Or Part C, sorry.
Okay, Part C,
Oh, man. Yeah, I sat down and tried to go through these things.
Yeah.
And I realized quickly it wasn't my expertise.
Yeah.
Right? So, it's a perfect example of I think I got this, but I don't. So I reached out to a qualified professional that I know that did that, and I knew my aunt was in good hands. I think that's, knowing your limitations really helps.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to help. You want to be the be-all, end-all for your client. And I know I ultimately want to be that as well, but I know that I need competent professionals at the ready that I can text, call, email, and say, hey, I have an opportunity, and here's the story, and they need to have a discussion about this, and I know it's in good hands. That makes me feel good to be able to pass it off to competent professionals.
And I think that's why you and I have a good relationship, because we both feel the same way. And like I said, I don't think everyone in the industry does. But I think that, in my mind, I want to attempt to work with people that have the similar values, the similar beliefs, that want to bring in the competent professional that's going to do right by the client in their area of expertise. So let me kind of finish up with this, Gil. So if someone listening, whether it be business owner, HR person, or another potential individual that needs a professional employee benefits firm like you, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Cell, email, you tell me, and we're going to make sure it gets included in the show notes, and that someone knows how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, I'd say cell or email fine. I think I have an office phone, but it's forwarded to which I don't know off the top of my head. I have to look at my business card.
So what's your cell?
248-766-2755. And my email address is Gil.Bromley, B like boy, R-O-M like Mary, L-E-Y, @USI.com.
Perfect. Well, Gil, it's been a pleasure to have you on the Inspired Business Leaders podcast, brought to you by Inspire Wealth. And please, anyone tuning in that needs someone like Gil that's going to be consultative and be able to do out-of-the-box things, reach out, email him for more information. You can always look or listen to past shows at inspiredbusinessleaderspodcast.com, and all the shows will be there. And other than that, thanks a lot for listening, and hope everyone has a great day, and talk to you soon. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Inspired Business Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Inspire Wealth. To learn more about the topics mentioned on today's show, or to listen to past episodes, visit www.inspiredbusinessleaderspodcast.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.